Good evening, everyone. It is Tuesday, September 23rd. This is a regular meeting of the Committee on Finance. I'm Providence Councilwoman Joanne Ryan. Madam Clerk, could you kindly read the roll?
Chairwoman Ryan,
Present.
Vice Chairman Taylor,
Here.
Counselor Antoine, Councilwoman Graves,
Yeah.
Counselor Sanchez.
Present.
We have five present, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Let the record reflect that we are joined by the Solicitor Ken Cheverini. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, I would like to entertain a motion to amend the agenda to add the Mile of History project to this meeting agenda for the sole purpose of scheduling a public hearing. Also waive the reading. Can I have that motion? Motion made by Councilwoman Angela, seconded by Councilman Taylor. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, next I would like to ask this committee for a motion to take an item out of order. I would like to take item 5 and hear that first. May I have that motion? Motion made by Councilwoman Angela, seconded by Councilman Taylor. All in favor, aye, and opposed, ayes have it. Motion carries. Madam Clerk, please read item 5 into the record.
Communication from His Honor the Mayor dated September 9th, 2025, informing the honorable members of the City Council that pursuant to section 302B and 1004 Providence Home Rule Charter of 1980, as amended in the Public Law, Chapter 45 through 50, sections 1 through 31, passed in 1987. He is this day appointing Sean Hawley of 67 Tyndall Avenue, Providence, Rhode Island, with the position of Director of the Department of Recreation, and I respectfully submit the same here.
Okay, Sean Hawley, please come forward. Madam Clerk, would you please swear in and raise your right hand? You swear on the council of parties that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth. Yes, and please state your name for the record.
Sean Holly.
Thank you, Mr. Hawley.
Thank you.
I understand you have been appointed to the position of the Director of the Department of Recreation. We all have your resumes. Oh, before I start, I'd like to recognize that Councilwoman Peterson has with us. So not Okay, so we all have your resume before us, but we would like to give you the opportunity to talk about yourself, your accomplishments, who you are, what you've done, what you hope to do, and how you can help the city in this new role.
Okay, well, with the be mindful of the essence of time, I prepared a statement. Good evening. Thank you for your time and allowing me to speak with you this evening. My name is Sean Hawley, and I appear before you with the hope of gaining the support to be Director of Recreation for the City of Providence. I take this role with the utmost importance and with a passion and determination that I am confident will be unmatched. I was born in Washington, D.C., but the City of Providence is where I consider myself to be from, but also where I truly believe that I have to find myself. I view recreation centers as essential components to any thriving community, and at the forefront of each community in the City of Providence as a whole are the youth. Empowering and enriching the youth is a task that I have taken seriously for many years. I firmly believe that in order to have a successful and vibrant community, there needs to be recreation centers operating efficiently at the hub of each of those communities. And recreation is not just sports nor fun and games. It's also much more than that. Recreation, in my vision, cuts deeply with a multitude of layers. Yes, sports, but also many other aspects, including but not limited to promoting community, strengthening diversity and inclusiveness, family, safety, character building, empowerment, leadership, education, health and wellness, workforce, career development, development of social skills, enhancing quality of life. It is a lifestyle. I am confident that my cross-training, along with my skill set and vast experiences, academically and professionally, provide me with a strong foundation from which I can be successful as your Director of Recreation. Academically includes degrees from Providence College as well as from Catholic University School of Law. Professionally includes that of being a sports agent, professor at Johnson and Wales University Sports Entertainment Event Management Department, professor at Providence College at the undergraduate and graduate MBA level with courses ranging from history of sports to sports management. Also, the position I currently left as the administrator of the Equal Opportunity Office for the state of Rhode Island. I look forward to working closely with my amazing staff at the main office. I look forward to working with the individual recreation center directors, who I consider to be the heartbeat of this operation, and their staff as well. I look forward to working with community leaders to create a path forward to success. And I leave you with something that I view as extremely important to the success of my role, and that is the partnership with Providence City Council. I certainly respect this integral role that each of you play in making the city of Providence the best city. And I do consider you as teammates. Thank you.
Wonderful, many members. Any questions? Councilwoman Graves.
Hi, Shannon.
Hello.
I have several questions, if that's okay. You have a very extensive resume.
Would you speak up?
You have a very extensive resume. I apologize.
Councilwoman?
You served at Madeline Rogers, which is in my area, rec, for 3 years, which is a short period of time. You said that recreation means a lot to the community, which it does. Why did you only stay there for such a short period of time? Why did you leave? And the reason I'm asking is most people, when they go into recreational centers, they tend to make that their life a goal, and they tend to stay forever. Why did you leave?
Well, I don't necessarily consider 3 years to be a short period of time. I respect your opinion on that. I enjoyed immensely working in rock at a Madeline Rogers Recreation Center. I felt like I accomplished quite a bit there. I felt like I worked well. Unity, includes itself. Doing a number of things with the Smithfield Library and other initiatives. I do regret leaving Rogers Recreation because it was a strong network that I had developed with my staff and the community too as well. But at that time, I felt it was a call for me to move along to a position with the city of Cranston as workforce development, which I do see still working with youth, empowering youth, helping to find individuals career development.
Okay, the other one, there's an article that I'm sure was gonna come up, so I might as well be the one to bring it up. About there being the issue of double dipping, should we say, with the Cranston and our city prior mayor. Would you like to address that, or?
Absolutely, I would love to address it. First of all, I feel it's unfortunate that whole issue, which is flawed in its reporting, was brought up again. I take that very seriously. Serious to be accused of such an issue. I am not a cheater and would never do so. I'm raised by 2 parents that raised me well, and I know better than that. But be that as it may, it's also been flawed in its reporting that I left that position on my own. Because that was the position I went into, that there was some discrepancy and miscommunication on what the role was that I had. And I took the high road out of respect for everybody. And although my father taught me to never quit a job unless you have a job, I thought it was in my best interest to move along with that job.
Okay. The other thing is, I told you I was gonna ask you some tough questions, so here's the next one. The next question is, seems like a lot of these things were really short-term positions. Is there a reason for that?
I don't know what exactly you're referring to.
A lot of these Well, we're kind of short
But,
term.
but oftentimes, one position leads to the opening door of another position.
Mhm.
I have to look out for myself too, in the progression of my career, and I like it. If I feel that there's a position that allows me to move forward on that path of my career, that's going to benefit others too as well along the way. I should not be forced to stay in a position. When I feel like I can do better by moving along too as well. But I don't necessarily see those positions. I think I know what you're referring to, but one position kind of leads hand in hand to the next position.
Okay, and my, oh,
Just one more shot.
and the other one is, you have a lot of current, you're on a lot of boards and there's a lot of current positions. Here. How are they gonna interfere, or are they gonna interfere with,
I've already discussed it with the mayor, and I do plan on stepping down for some boards. One of my favorite boards happened to be in the room, so I'm not gonna say I'm stepping down for them, and nothing but love for Water Fire Province. However, I do have to make sure that none of those get in the way of me, that directions.
and the teaching,
I'm sorry.
and the teaching ones? And the teaching ones, can you have 1, 2, 3, 4 teaching?
Any teaching that I do is outside of work hours.
Anyone else? Councilman Sanchez.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Thank you, Sean, for presenting here before us and stepping into this very important role for the city of Providence. I just had a quick question, basing off my colleague's last question. It's confirmed, I guess, that you are going to continue to be a professor, which is obviously you're right. My question is, what's your course load per semester usually? And if it's outside of work hours, I'm guessing they're evening classes, which does raise a little bit of a questions, because there is a lot of after school and evening events that our rec centers participate in. So just trying to get a little bit more information on, you know, how busy your outside work is gonna keep you from possibly being available for evening recreational activities.
One course at best, one evening at best. For the teaching aspect. I had made a commitment to teaching that class, and I think you would respect that. It wouldn't necessarily be fair to the students that I automatically pulled the plug on that. However, I have not committed to teaching any courses beyond the semester. I will reflect on that to see if that is going to get in the way of my job as director of recreation. Should
I appreciate that. Thank you.
right?
Anyone else? Well, I'd like to say I'm very impressed with your resident background. I know you personally, know of your commitment to our youth, and I'm impressed with your resume, and I like the fact that you will retain a teaching position, an adjunct teaching position. Because I think it's a nice role model. You serve as a nice role model for our young folks. And I think I can speak for all our council members when I say we are very close. We pay close attention to the work that happens in our recreation centers. They're the community centers, the center of our communities, and we pay close attention to them. I think you're a great pick. I think the mayor, the administration did a great job in finding you and enticing you to take on this role. I think you've got all the tools necessary. I would just like to ask you one quick question. What's the first thing you're gonna do? And if you're appointed, which I think you will be, How are you gonna start off? What are you gonna do?
Well, I'm only the second day of the job. However, I do plan on, for the next couple of weeks, taking a deep dive, a comprehensive, review of what's going on at the recreation centers, meeting with staff, meeting with my directors. So to put an example, I have a whole lot of ideas and thoughts of what I would like to do. But I think that to put into place, an educated, plan, I need to do a dive into see what's going on at the recreation centers and see how I can build off of what has already been put in place.
Great. Let the record reflect that we're joined by Pro Tem on Bishado, and I believe you have a question as well.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for stepping up and, being the director of, recreation. Just, two questions. One is, and perhaps, you spoke about it, perhaps if you did, so would you? And it's in relations to the management of personnel. What role, how long has it been, and what role have you played in managing teams or staff, and how big of a staff do you see that did you manage, and now that you're gonna manage the Department of Recreation?
Well, have managed various sizes of staffs, the staff that I just came from at the state, it's a small staff, but a mighty staff, it's a lot of responsibility, but then, and I've been able to get out of a small staff a great deal of body of work. But I have worked with larger size staff as well. But I'm not looking to micromanage the deep into each recreation center staffs. There's roles and responsibilities I need to place on my recreation center directors and have them have accountability to manage their staff as well. But we will work hand in hand together.
And just to follow up on that, understanding that the position stated, and also in the cover letter indicating, as a director, you're servicing the city of Providence, the mayor. How do you see the relationship with city council, with each of us, 15 of us? And how do you see that role, especially coming from the experience that you had prior to, several years back, working within the system? What would you improve, managing these relationships with, the needs of our, city council members, but also because they represent the area that are particularly, the needs are somewhat even, unique to their own region, that they represent.
Actually, that is a question that was raised before, but I will answer for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
I see you guys as teammates. I see, the city council as an integral part of, the operation of the city of Providence. So I look forward to working with you very closely. But I also would like to have you guys step up too and work with me also. So I know for the city a great partnership, in making each recreation center better. And yes, I do agree that each recreation center has its own shape and mold and look, and there's a need. That's what I meant by over the next couple of weeks. I'm looking forward to working with each recreation center, taking a comprehensive overview of what is going on at those recreation centers to get a strong understanding of the makeup of the community around it and so forth. So it's important to understand that each recreation center cannot be taken as a cookie cutter type of recreation center. Each one has its own makeup, each one has its own livelihood. So I look forward to working with each one as well as city council.
Last one?
Great, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Last one. Do you have any thoughts or position on the rector's fundraising for recreation? As you know, the recreation department, and all departments, but I think recreation department also faces a lot of challenges when it comes to resources and funding for our youth and so forth? Do you have any position or any thought about, the, fundraising or directors fund fundraising? And or having their team fundraising for their particular needs?
First, I must say that not everybody's equipped to be a fundraiser, so to put that on the directors, I need to take a look at, are they capable of doing that? I'm not opposed to it. Back when I was at Rogers Recreation, there was not fundraising, was not in play there. I understand there's something that's going on currently. There's a need to look at keeping operational funds in place to help drive individually in the rec center and for our recreation centers as a whole. So it's something I look forward to looking into, make a look, but I think first and foremost, not everybody is equipped to be a fundraiser. So to put fundraising on somebody that's not capable, we need to have the right people in place to.
Okay. Everybody all set? Can I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve number 5.
Motion made by Councilman Taylor. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Sanchez. Any opposed? Motion, I'm sorry,
I'm staying.
you're abstaining?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, so you need to go to the Court of Full Council. So I would encourage you to introduce yourself to other council members, so that they know you before they cast their votes. Good luck, and thank you very much.
I appreciate the time.
Okay, Madam Clerk, please read item 1 into the record.
Resolution requesting the members of the Providence City Council to support and approve the Providence Public School District's assembly of school construction application for RIDE stage 2 approval.
Okay, we have one exhibit. Okay, can everyone come forward that is going to testify on this topic? In the meantime, may I have a motion first to enter the packet that is in front of you, red and white stripe, as exhibit 1A. And that motion made by Councilman
Second.
Taylor, seconded by Councilman and Graves. All in favor, aye. Any opposed, ayes have it. Motion carries. Please swear in. It's very convenient. Sarah, the clean up the equipment, it's a morning, you're about to get into it. Oh, truth and acting.
She's not very strong, so
We're gonna have to get stadium seating, huh?
Executive Director of Constitution Academy.
Okay.
Crystal Lindbergh, Deputy Finance Director, Special Officer of the City Council. Working on the
Joe Sankey, Director of Program Management, Down Construction. Kevin Dion, ESP Facilities and Capital Planning.
Dr. Dexter Moore Jr., COO, yes,
Tracy Donnelly, Severe Chain Architects.
John O'Sweeney, Director of Public Practice.
Wonderful, thank you all. Who is?
I'm gonna kick us off and
Okay,
then
great,
tell you who's here, and
thank you.
I think we'll have to move back. Thanks for having us to everyone. This is a stage 2 application, which we've come before you with stage 2 applications to RIDE before. So just as a reminder, in order for capital projects done in schools to be eligible for reimbursement from RIDE, it has to go through this process of being approved to be on an approved list of projects. That's what the stage 2 does. So this is our latest round of approved funding. There are 3 kind of separate pieces that I would draw your attention to here, and then our team will go through the details. So there are a list of capital projects that are primarily for schools that aren't in phase 3 and 4 and will need other kinds of improvements through the capital revolving fund. This allows us for that money to revolve back in the fund. So that's the biggest group of projects that we've described. There's additional funding for the Kazarian School based on the new designs that we worked on, Councilwoman, that provides the additional funding for that project. The team can talk you through what that pays for. And then there's some money for Times Square, which we've not been before you seeking funding for before, but this was through a partnership with RIDE and PPSD. This will allow them to seek reimbursement through RIDE. 100% of that funding comes through the school and they'll manage that project, but it has to be in their home city's application, so that's why you see it here, and keep this here to speak to that also. So I'm gonna turn it over to Joe and PPSD, who can walk through the projects, and then obviously the finance here, team is here, if you have questions about the funding. I'm here, right?
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Madam Chair.
Good evening.
So I did prepare a brief presentation that I can walk you through, and certainly can ask you questions as we go through. So just to refresh your memory, the objectives of the RIDE Stage 2 is to submit an application for housing aid reimbursement for construction projects. And this happens to be primarily on the capital revolving fund. Up until now, we've been using the 2019 MOA as our primary means of getting reimbursement for a capital revolving fund. None of the items that are in here are in the stage 2, 3, or 4 projects. They're separate from those projects. With the exception of classical and hope, which are identified in here, but it's for separate projects. For example, a classical, there's an area in the back of the building in the admin area that the windows weren't replaced, the separate project, and funding, storage for that as well. Once approved, typical process is, submitted on September 15th. RIDE will review it, respond with some comments that we have to respond back as well. RIDE will make a recommendation to Council Elementary and Secondary Education. Usually happens around late November, sometime in December, before usually in the new year. That will result in a memorandum of agreement, MOA, which will list out the projects. At that point, the building committee will have the opportunity to be reviewing that with PPSD in the city, and on an annual basis, be able to determine what projects are critical for either educational or just for maintenance. That's go for them. Key components are, as Courtney said previously, capital revolving, program additions, supplemental areas at the 3K8, the existing gym renovation, academic site work, and time to academy. And as Courtney had said previously, there's no capital revolving funding in that, the city or PPSD funding. So the second page is a snippet pretty much of what we submitted as part of the stage 2. And I think what's important to note is the highlighted areas is that approximately $80 million of the projects are going to be in the stage 2. And with the approval of the stage 2 and the MOA, that means the city is eligible up to $67,330,000 based on, I think, the city and time school academy based on what they're paying for. So next slide is the project. Then I'll go through each one individually. Funding, again, very important to note on the 4th page. This is not seeking funding, this is seeking reimbursement, so understand that. The 5-year capital plan project will utilize the city's council existing revolving fund for reimbursement up to 91%, and that's due 2030. The order of magnitude currently is the Bavarian Elementary School gym renovation and site work is approximately 20 million. District-wide 5-year capital improvement plan is about 50 million and about 10 million per year. And time to academy funding through the time to the budget is about approximately 10 million. So the Bavarian Elementary School, you go to the 5th slide, it shows you just the site plan. And just a little background, the original 2022 MOA for the new Bavarian School did not include a new gym. That original plan was to utilize the rec center gym. Since then, there has been some discussion about using that existing gym and actualizing it the rec center from community feedback. So in order to do that, we need a separate way of getting reimbursed.
Joe, can I just ask you?
Sure.
Just a clarification on funding on that slide that states we utilize the city council's revolving fund for reimbursement. I'm not aware of it being a city council
The
fund.
city's revolving fund.
Okay, so strike council.
Yep.
Right. We were excited with what we had.
Money.
Thank you, sorry to interrupt you.
There's another thing.
Going back to Kazarian, in order to utilize that gym, we're also gonna use it for educational space and be connected to the new building. So there's additional costs, including in that as well as some sanitary storm lines and utilities. We have to work around, we want to, have a mechanism to get reimbursed for that work, so that is part of stage two submission. In addition to, capital involved. So district-wide, even after after phase 2, 3, and 4, there still is approximately $350 million of additional needs on the remaining schools. It's broken out to about $175 million for the elementary, $80 million for the middle school, about $95 million for high schools. PPSD has been working on a 5-year capital improvement plan over the last couple of years, been fine tuning it more and more every year. And with the projection out, we worked with them, including Studio J, to prepare this stage 2. We used a number of $10 million, even though our capital involvement fund is not $10 million, somewhere less than that. We just wanted to have the flexibility of having funds available in case some additional funds might come available, or if something happens to an emergency situation comes up, there's a flexibility to be able to move funding around within that MOA. The way the breakdown is of the approximately $50 million that we're earmarking for the capital revolving. Again, the major needs, as we said before, was the elementary schools, which is about $25 million, approximately $5 million in the middle school, and some $20 million in the high school. So, Crystal, if you want to talk a little bit about the capital involvement and what the actual numbers like.
Certainly. So the current balance available in fiscal year 2026, our revolving fund is approximately $6.3 million. It was established in fiscal year 2022, the city council ordinance, in conjunction with PPSD. The initial starting balance was $8.3 million. $5 million was invested by the district, and $3.3 million was invested by the city. So year over year, we continue to revolve those dollars, and the remaining balance at this point in time is 6.3 available to use. Also in the capital improvement plan just adopted by the city council, there are 2 planned yet unfunded at this time deposits into that fund of $5 million each. The first right now is anticipated to occur in fiscal year 2027, and the second will be in fiscal year 2029. So that will align very well with the current operations.
Next slide talks about the project types. The focus is always on teaching and learning, student staff well-being, resource management, family and community engagement. But at the same time, we do know that we are met with emergencies, situations, roof leaks, water leaks, all those kind of things. So there's an allocation so that there's a funding source for all, or I should say a reimbursement source for all. The 5-year capital improvement plan is based on a couple of items that the city and have determined as their highest needs. So there's critical infrastructure improvement, that mechanical, electrical, plumbing, keep the buildings operational, life safety, keep everybody safe in the building, learning environment enhancement. That would both be at the top of the list, but sometimes our buildings tell us differently, but whenever the opportunity becomes available and we can plan for it, we've done individual projects about specialty classrooms. We've added elementary school, small bathrooms to the pre-K in some buildings as well. All things that is working to enhance the education as well. And also site environmental upgrades, pedestrian vehicle, and just making it safe for the The next slide is a breakdown of based on PPSD's thoughts on what they need to be looking at for planning, and these include all those categories we talked about, infrastructure improvements, enhancement to education. They are very specific dollar numbers because we did go through a very specific plan developed by PPSD and added across those. I think what's important to note here is that the school building committee will make adjustments and review this on an annual basis. We usually vote once a year on it, where we go through with PPSD, city, and present the list of what we believe to be those, capital revolving projects. It is vetted out, looked at, and just, in the past, we've had times where we've had a plan, but then the plan had to change because some of them. So there is flexibility. The key thing is that the dollars are allocated there, so if a bigger need is that reservoir, you have the flexibility to ask for some adjustments. In that, and you can do the planning based on the capital revolving fund on a daily basis. I'm gonna pause for a second, yes, we want to talk a little bit about the actual projects and how we came to it.
Thank you. Again, I'm Kevin Dion from Providence Public School System. I think I really want to stress at this list of these capital projects for these buildings, 17 schools total identified. 8 are elementary schools, 2 are middle schools, and 7 are high schools. Within our group, our approach is we go through, we identify projects, we discuss them internally, then we work with Downs Construction, the rest of the district, city, and COJ to start identifying what those needs are. I think it's incredibly important to remember that outside of all the construction we have going on in the district, for the schools that are currently in design, these schools still need upgrades and improvements as well. So that is what our focus is here, to make sure that we're moving forward and equally doing that across the district. Spending the money as efficiently as possible.
Right, and I think what's important to note is that some of these repairs need to be done, and
Yes.
money need to be spent, and this provides you the opportunity to get reimbursed up to 91% of dollars.
Perfect.
Next slide, just talk a little about Perry, Kazarian, and 3K8. The exact number is 19,978,500, supplementary funds for additional scope in phase 3 project. And then the last slide talks about Times Two Academy, the actual number is 9.5 million. And thank you all, the funding for improvements to the school, we show for, this phase 2 will allow them to see things like line as well. And as you can see, no, below, Times Two will be self-funded, no CRF, no city or PPSD funding. If you want to have any,
Well, thanks for the opportunity, yeah, so our projects will be self-funded 3 times a year, we have capital reserve fund. To finance our portion of the project, this, piggybacking off of the city's application, really will just allow, save us time and effort to prepare, to submit our own application. We are a district affiliated with charter school, wouldn't make sense to have 2 simultaneous applications. And we still say, well, the city's application. The projects will be managed by Times Square, self-finance by Times Square, and really the only reason that we problems is really to save us time that submitted our own application.
that concludes our presentation.
Thank you very much. Many members, questions? Councilwoman Apple. Go right ahead.
Thank you. Good to see you again, Joe. And team. I have a few questions. So the first one on the second slide. For 67 approximately million of the 79.4 million are eligible. Some of the projects we've seen are 91% eligible, like we can get reimbursed up to 91%, this is only 84.7%. Are there aspects of the projects that aren't reimbursable up to that full amount, or like why would there be that discrepancy?
Yeah, so on average, the base rate is around 80, it'll be 80.5. So 80.2.
80.2 is the base.
80.2, yes. Yeah, and then we could have bonuses of 5% increments, so we kind of average that number out. On some projects might get up to 91%, some will be closer to 8.5. It's a matter of how we fund those potential bonuses.
And as it revolves, so every year Bristol closes out what we build out of the revolving fund, and that sets a new baseline for next year's project. Depending on what percentage we get reimbursed, it just means there's more money for next year. So if that number went up, it would just go into that fund, be applied to the next year's fund. Okay.
Are there things you could have done to up that amount that was eligible because of their bonuses?
Yeah, I'm actually, all right. sorry to ask you, but is the bonuses sunsetted, so is the percentage gonna be more locked in and not have the opportunity to get it up to that?
So start with the good news first. The city did a really good job with the bond funding projects to make sure that all those are getting done.
Yes, I remember.
That's already approaching $1 billion and we're showing 900 million. So that's, the heavy lifting has been done. With the stage 2 application, these, with the exception of the Kazarian work, which is starting, that will get a higher rate. These are all starting after July 1, 2024, so they're capped at 5 months. So anything that is safety related, which is likely a lot of it, will get 84.7% is max. Anything that doesn't qualify for school safety is then gonna get about 79.7 is the exact number for this year. So it is a blended rate. A big chunk of it, about 20 million, will get 91%. The security ones will get 84.7, and then everything else will get a hair on the base.
Okay, thank you, that, I appreciate that.
Please,
Okay.
go ahead.
Thank you. So then, I don't know what slide number it is, because there are numbers, but the one that says District 5-year capital improvement plan, $350 million. On the following slides, we talk a bit about, the list of schools. I just want to confirm, so the 350 million, which is the need. Those are both schools that otherwise weren't touched by our other bonds that we've done, like George J. West School and Nathan Bishop. And additional, like schools that are being touched, which is additional projects at those schools that can be included in the bond we've already discussed.
Yes, so that's correct. So, that 350 million represents the remaining projects that are not in phase 2, 3, or 4. With the exception of, although classical and both are identified, that scope of work is now part of the phase 2 or 3 or 4 of those projects. But that's correct. In 2022, we did a reassessment of the schools at that point, and that number was about $1 billion. It's like 900 and something, so.
Yeah.
You know, even if you escalate that number, the needs at that time were $1 billion. And about 700 million have been, identified in phase 2, 3, 4, which leaves that other 350.
Okay. And then, if we have about, 6.3 million in the revolving fund right now, thank you, Crystal, for the seven numbers of it there. How do we feel okay with an MOA of 10 million, since that's so much higher than the 6.3?
The MOA could be adjusted. You don't have to use all the money. It's reimbursement. It's not funding. So if for some reason in 1 year, there happens to be some additional funding comes in or some creative way of moving money, it just gives us the option. And that's why we just picked a $10 million number, because there's always more needs than we have for funding. But it just gives us the flexibility to be able to move projects around if for some reason there's some other emergency, which we know will happen in the next couple of years. It's just more for reimbursement than anything else. Not committing any funding or anything at all, or any of the projects right now.
Okay, and then since the need is so great, how will you, I guess I have 3 questions. How will you make the decision across like all these schools that are listed in the pretty specific amounts, like, given that it's like at most 10, but probably closer to like 6, like, how are you making a decision about which schools go first, like which projects are happening, like, what is that decision making?
So I'll start and you guys jump in. So we've been working with PBSC over the last couple of years. They have a 5-year capital plan. We did a couple times a month, but every couple of months we say, okay, these are the projects we're moving forward with, because they are the priority projects that we've been talking about planning. Some of them may be a need for specialty classroom, some of them may need roofs are leaking that have to be resolved right away. There's an ongoing list the PBSD prepared, and they would love to see that happen over the next 5 years. Unfortunately, what we see is that sometimes a roof leak will take priority over something else. But again, we work at least on a quarterly basis where we say, here's the next 5 projects. And we're gonna move ahead with RFPs or getting that work done. Here's the next 5. And that is just an ongoing discussion, and it changes constantly.
And then is the list also coordinated with like the local principals, like Principal Jackson, Nathan Bishop, is she like feeding in information about what that million is? I'm just using it as an example because that's going well.
any of the schools, are the local principals like feeding in, like, these are our biggest needs, or like, how are you determining this budget?
What we're attempting and going to be doing is providing the bucket of what the costs are that identified by the school. Then we identify priority items that need to be done. And then discuss those and create a scope for those projects. Getting school leadership's input. And that's gonna drive how we follow our path, if you will. Because it has to be a partnership.
Yeah.
I can't say for the district that we have to do these this way, when it doesn't meet the need of the students and the school.
Yeah.
So it has to be a partnership, it has to be an agreement, and those decisions have to prioritize the need of the students in the school that they're working. So it's gonna be a constant communication and a living document that's getting involved over time, that's gonna get better. Just continue to make improvements.
But you have that regular communication with.
Yeah, we're going, yeah, and we're gonna improve that as we go through, and put new guardrails on the system to really document and model how we go from A to C on this process.
Many members, Councilman Sanchez, I didn't see Bruce, whoever, Councilman Sanchez, Councilman.
My question is, seems like the middle schools are getting pushed out. Why so little on the middle schools? There's only 2 listed here, and 5 million seems to be what you had for them, allocated. They're just as run down as all the other schools. Is there a reasoning for this?
Well, I think it goes back again to what's been accomplished and what's been done and planned and designed as part of the previous phases and what is planning to be done in phase 4. These schools that I identified here, middle schools, are targeting needs on, what those infrastructure improvements might be within the school. Or if it's roof or exterior envelope theaters, things like that. It's our best effort to identify what priorities have to be done and leveraging them across the district. So it is, obviously there's less middle schools than there are elementary schools and the high schools. So that's the trade-off, if you will. So really allocate the funds on the need. And we'll continue to evaluate and improve that complete process as we go forward. So we will, I'm sorry.
No. I was just wondering because sometimes I feel like we're trying to close down our middle schools, and I just want to make sure that this is not something that we're doing, and on the slide. So I just wonder and want to make sure that we are repairing them along with everything else. Because I noticed that was one of the things that came up when we had our open meetings about trying to take over our middle schools, and we don't want that to happen.
And I'll just respond to that directly. So there haven't been any decisions around the community schools. And obviously, as we shared earlier, the sites that are here are sites that were on phase 2, 3, or 4. And so we're getting ready to launch our phase 4 engagement. We started that with our school board last week. We'll bring that to our school building next week, and we'll start some more public engagement over the month of October. But no decisions have been made yet. And this list is just simply those sites that weren't a part of phase 2, 3, and 4 that we're going to make sure we're also allocating as a student.
Okay, thank you.
And just to add, if we look at the list, you see elementary, right? So the majority of the schools are elementary schools. The majority of the age of those are older. There's less needs. Even when we did our 2022 assessment, that the needs of the middle school were the least amount. The elementary, just because the amount of them was the highest, and then the high school.
Thank you.
What's that?
Thank you, Chairwoman. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. My first question, since we're on this graph right here, I feel like we've been told this committee over and over that completing phase 4 would give the opportunity to every student in PPSD to new or a like new building. I feel like that phrase we've heard quite some time. So my question is, if by the time we're done with phase 4, every student in the city will have the option to go or continue going to a new or like new school. Where does that leave the rest of these schools outside of Central and Classical? Because I know those have been included in up to phase 4. So yeah, my question is what do we do with these buildings or students at this point? Or at that point, by the time we're done with phase 4? Because that's always been my kind of question and concern with all of this process. Like, obviously we support giving our students that opportunity, but if that opportunity is going to be presented by phase 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 schools that currently have students in them are included in phases 1 through 4. Where does that leave us as a city, I guess?
I think to answer the question, the goal is yes, that still is the vision that every child will have the opportunity to go to school. Part of this is twofold. Number one, the revolving fund that is gonna help us get there. The approval we've been using to fund those projects, which was in 2019, expires this year. So either way, this is a way to re-up some of that work. This also provides flexibility. I think we mentioned in some other council meetings, the enrollments, we're gonna see if they actually, like the projection we're saying -3,000 each year to come. Whether that becomes to fruition or not. If it doesn't come to fruition, then obviously we need to move to phase 5 because there are students that are not accounted for who are here that we didn't have to move for. If the data that is being provided by the professionals is true, then I think there's conversations to be had, like, do all these need to be there if we're down 3,000 students, which is the equivalent when we have 6 schools, the other value of this revolving fund is if you do make a repair, and let's say one of these is in planes, if you are funding with a bond and you close it, the state stops paying, so then it becomes your problem. If you fund it with revolving fund, you can make the repair while at the school, you can make the school safe for the students, but if something were to happen in the future, you've already received your state, there's nothing else to come back. So again, this is still 5 years out. The goal is still there. If data changes and all of a sudden kids are back in, I think we'll have to reevaluate. I think we mentioned at the meeting last May that there's a potential office for phase 5. If that is in play, but if numbers trend down as it's expected, then I think this conversation will be different 5 years from now because there's down another 15–20%.
So I guess my question / like confusion is if by the time we're done with phase 4, every student in the city has an opportunity to go to a new or like new student, doesn't that account for the students that are in these schools already?
I appreciate the question. I think an important distinction is we shifted from 100% newer like new buildings, so 100% newer like new seats, which means that we would be able to have that number be the number of seats, not necessarily the building. So I think there's a little nuance that I to clarify that sort of question.
So just to kind of clarify that. So by the time phase 4 is done, there will be new seats. There will be enough seats in those schools for every child in the city of Providence?
That's what we're aiming for, is that goal of 100% newer like new seats.
There may be additional buildings that you may or may not need, and you can choose at the time, but there will be 18,000 making 1,000 new seats across the district. There might be other seats available, and you may not have 18,000 in the schools, you might have 16. And there will be a seat for every child. There will be decisions in 4 or 5 years based on data. But the city and the district will tag and choose whether that is how many seats you want to offer.
Right. All right, I appreciate the responses. Just for the record, I will, share my concerns that that I've shared before this committee is that we're moving in the direction of creating a situation where schools on this list are gonna be closed at some point. With the enrollment declining and the strong push, it seems by all powers that be to expand charter school seats, are the two main reasons for my thought process on this. But like I said, I do appreciate you guys, being here and presenting on this. My last question on this graph specifically, are about Central and Classical. How come this work wasn't included in previous, phased, approved projects? Cause why I ask that is I don't wanna, come back to the table next year. And have schools that we have approved, to be reconstructed or be, renovated completely. Asking for more improvements because certain work wasn't included. I think it would make sense to try to get everything done. Obviously, there's gonna be emergency repairs here and there. But all the work done, as much as possible, so we can focus on the next project.
Yeah, so I can speak to that. So Central was included in 2019 MOA, but as Margaret said, that MOA expires at the end of this year. So this provides us, there was funding in there still is funding in there, but once that expires, we lose the ability to get reimbursed, so we wanted to put some more money in for that. And on Classical and Hope specifically, I talked to both of those. When we did the assessment in 2022, and then did the stage 2 and 3 and 4, there was an additional $20 million allocated for Classical and another 25 million, I think, for Hope. But at that time, we also noted there's an additional $40 million that Hope schools still need. So there was an understanding and a knowledge that there was further work that has to be done at those schools. At Classical specifically, we identified that the rear administration area, the back windows are failing there. That really needs to be a separate project because the 20 million that is included in stage 4 is to do the auditorium, the cafeteria, the kitchen, that area there, which has not been renovated.
Thank you. And I actually do have another question on this graph, if it's okay to you.
Please.
Say one of these schools closes down, what's the decision process on where to reallocate the funds?
So that process, because I've gone through it a couple times and that 5 different amendments just for the 2019 MOA. We sit down with the city and the district, determine where there's the need for potential reimbursement, right? It's not a funding source, it's a reimbursement source. There's discussions about what they think the priority projects are going to be, and we submit a formal request to RIDE asking to shift the dollar. It's a thoughtful process that you look at what potentially the needs might be for a specific school. For example, was a school closed, there's no needs there, then that funding or potential for reimbursement should be moved to a school that you get reimbursed for what you're doing, maintenance or some kind of educational.
So just to confirm, that process is between you, Downs Construction, PPSD, and the city of Providence?
Yeah, we don't have a decision in it. We are just facilitating the discussion about where those funding sources should be moved, that reimbursement source should be moved.
So it's PPSD that decides where that would go?
based on their needs, I would think that the majority of it will be from information we'll get from PPSD, yes.
Thank you. I just have a clarifying question, on the first line of the first page. Where it says housing aid reimbursement for future construction projects. So all of the money that RIDE, reimburses the city is in the form of housing aid reimbursement?
Yeah, so there's a variety of funding sources, but the main one is school housing, which is reimbursable. So you've received, I believe, $100 million of pay-as-you-go funding from statewide bond, that's one tracker funding. RIDE is provided a series of grants, facility equity, wellness, food trucks, which are paid 100%. But the vast majority of funding is school housing. This takes two forms. One is when you complete a project. It's like a $100 million project and you get 90% reimbursement. On every bond payment you make over the next 20 years, we'll pay 90% each payment. That's the majority of it. These projects, with the exception of the Kazarian one, is all within your revolving fund. That's money at this time, it's just state money. Initially, there was $8 million that the district and the city put in, which you got 91% back from the state money, but let's continue that thought process. So even without those two $5 million additional contributions, you should be able to do $30 million of work with just the money that's in that fund. Every year you complete the project, we'll verify it's done, and RIDE will send back the reimbursement rate, and then you get the next batch of projects, and you can just repeat that cycle over and over again. So the key here for this, unlike other stage twos, they're not seeking any money, because the money already exists in the revolving fund. It's merely getting approval to allow the reimbursement to fit on the norms. It's a testing.
Thank you. My last question is, so just to confirm, I know it's been stated, by allowing Times 2 Academy, thank you, Director, for being here. There's no fiscal impact at all to the city, like this doesn't, cap us from adding more work or anything of that nature?
That's correct. So unlike Achievement First and others, they're technically part of the PPSD. Lansbury is technically a PPSD school. Their building is about 20 years old, so they haven't applied it in a long time. The thought process was if they apply separately, since it's all Providence money, that we'd be paying $200,000 applications when we just travel for one. Their projects and the resources have does not limit where you can get those. It's just a way so that Providence taxpayers aren't taking two applications and then giving two separate schools. So they're gonna manage the projects on their own, separate funding, it's not part of the revolving fund, it's part of their own budget. It's just a way to save on application fees.
You said there's what's the application fee?
It's the preparing the application, so we have to hire an architect and do all the studies and do drawings and stuff.
But it could be depending on the district, it could be millions, it could be 100,000, which you'll get reimbursed. Without being, since it's a PPSD entity, to have two separate $500,000 applications doesn't make sense when you want and still have the same.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Anthony.
I just had a quick follow-up to Councilman Sanchez's first line questions. Just a quick, I guess, confirmation of what I'm hearing, and then also request of to his point about and the clarification with the seats versus schools. This is part of the newer and fewer initiative from RIDE, right? RIDE incentivizes PPSD to have newer and fewer schools. It's part of the process, right? That's a phrase we've heard a lot, but just clarifying.
Yeah, some of that, so there is a state law, which one of the bonuses you are getting is the new and fewer. Some of these are already underway, the West Rod investigation.
Yeah.
There's others that are already occurring. These are the ones that aren't part of that natural mix that we are also waiting and seeing if the enrollments again, in one direction, this changes.
Yeah.
This is actually giving the city options. If you need to act, you're not losing any payments. It would be very painful to investors. The bond funds in the building, and all of a sudden those payments stop and you're not looking for it. So it's a way to give you flexibility.
No, I love the options. I guess the request is that if there are schools that are that we start project we might close, that we don't wait I sense that sometimes we wait until the last minute and then it's kind of too late and we're like, what do we do with this school? And so the request is that we all work together much earlier in the process than has been what's happened before, to like identify where those are and like work together on what those next steps are, because I just don't want it to hit us like super close to when the school's gonna close. We have parents who are upset and kids who are upset and council people who didn't know and lots of folks. It's been a little more chaotic than I think it needed to have been. This is not like a criticism. I just like would love us to make it even better in the future. Hopefully, we're not closing these schools. These are great schools. George G. West, great school. Nathan Bishop, great school. Like, let's keep those. Yeah, all these are great. I'm not gonna list all of them, but if there are changes, let's not wait 5 years and to start those conversations would be my request. And I think my council would like to be involved with these two, my fellow council.
Anything else, any members? Councilwoman Peterson?
Thank you. Thank you, Chairwoman. I actually have a little bit similar to the questions that were asked by the committee, but referring to the district-wide capital improvement plan, you have a reimbursement projected for East Hopkins. East Hopkins is currently housing Kennedy Elementary. And my understanding was that we were phasing out East Hopkins. So I'm trying to understand if the reimbursement was for things that we were fixing up for Kennedy to be there, or if this is something that we're projecting over the next 5 years and we're not technically gonna be phasing out East Hopkins.
So those costs that have included there are for potential maintenance for, it would be great to utilize that for sweep space for the phase 4 project, for example, right? So it's working, be working well for RFK. If that space does get used for a sweep space, we would like to have the ability to have a reimbursement source. So if work does get done there, you can get reimbursed for it. And it's important. I think right now, that work that we have done there came out of the RFK function, which is what we don't want to do. Right. We want that to go with all RFK. So that's the reason that those dollars are allocated there. We do have to maintain the ability for the next 5 years anyway.
Okay. That's what I needed to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
Pro Tem Rashada?
Thank you. Just overall, starting off with the resolution. I noticed that the same resolution was passed in 2023. Is that standard for the languages to address the this process?
So every community has this standard for levels. I don't know how far that can be used, so well, every community has different languages that they have. But from stage 2, across the board, you need, one of the criteria is, town council has to come. And that looks differently, community by community. My understanding is it should be this one's for some units.
So it's the same one, there's no ones of changing in the language, but just
Yeah, this is consistent with the previous one that we had submitted.
but with no specifics along the line.
As far as like
That's
specific
just
stuff.
getting a council resolution based on the assumption and the goals of meeting the needs of the local schools, state, and the funding. That's what.
Yeah, and the stage 2 document itself, that which is those project requests.
I just wanted to get clarification, because I noticed the same resolution, that's why. So, as I listened to some of the presentation, I just wanted to go back to one specific. And again, I say these things at times, we look at it overall, but I also look at the school, particularly the areas that I represent, right? This one being, one of them, Feinstein Elementary School, Sackett Street. Recently toured it, and all these schools need some work. There's a roof leak there and so forth, and needs a roof. Is this part of that phase, or is it already in that process?
I think that's the majority of that work that we've identified. PBSD keeps report of roof leaks, potential issues, so that scope of work is included and is here.
And this,
Obviously, a priority,
I'm sorry,
and it's obviously a priority to correct those situations.
and when you say priority, within what, months, or when it raises to that level of priority?
I think realistically, it's it's structural life safety issue. So it should be addressed as quickly as possible. It's securing the funding, scoping out the project, exactly how much of the roof needs to be repaired, what needs to be repaired, and then doing that work in the summer months while students out there. There's, as you can imagine, it's very disruptive. I've been working on the roof. So it's identifying the problem, clearly, planning what the problem will be, the resolution will be, and then getting it done. So is that, the summer? Ideally, yes. And how we get there, whether we use October, November, December into next year to start working on the process.
So you're saying, 2026 summer is for.
If I'm not
Just
saying
following
on
that.
term, that's,
Yeah, this MOA would be active
As
after
of July 1st.
January first, and our capital revolving fund that we have, identify anything else will be July first.
Yeah.
So yeah, you could prepare and get everything ready to start in the summer of.
26. Um. You referenced, Hope High School needing additional work of about $40 million. In the initial stages of these things, does Down or assess the whole school of their needs, or just particular identity, when you identify a specific area to renovate? Was an assessment done on the entire school that we knew already that Hope High School needed another 40 million? Does it need, and then the other question is, does it need another X amount of dollars in other areas? Or what is the total need for, like, for example, on Hope High School?
So going back to 2017, the state did an assessment of all the schools, the 2017 Jacobs report. At that point, they did identify that the need for Hope High School, for example, was pretty significant. In 2019, there was an MOA that had a certain amount of money that was allocated for Hope High School that's been used over the last couple of years. As we've gone through and done other stage twos in 2022, 2023, 2024, and now again in 25, we continue to identify those schools that have more needs. That need has been known since 2017, but you also have the problem like I said, we had identified in 2022 $1 billion worth of work needs to be done. We need to be able to fund that $1 billion in order to submit that MOA and what the financial plan is for it. And that's kind of how Providence has been doing it in piecemeal for 2019, 2022, 2023, 2024, up to $700 million worth of increases. Incredible. No other district in the state is doing it. No other district in New England is doing it. What you guys are doing here. But that need has been known for a long time, and it just becomes what projects do you do, what are the higher priorities, and how much money do you have to be able to fund it. But to answer your other question is, yes, Hope does need more money, even after this next.
And you just stated over.
There will be another phase that will probably be needed there.
Thank you. And currently, what is the balance of the revolving fund?
$6,348,675.
And good, thank you. Lastly, one of the challenges that I faced or we faced over here is at least the notion of having more transparency around disclosing information and so forth. I know that as more so the other buildings committee, the decision process in a sense, it goes through. Can you just explain that again in terms of how those decisions are made and where the documents reside, where we as city council or the general public can see them if they were able to make an analysis, or are they available?
Yeah, the building committee is the right place to go. So the building committee reviews the stage 2 application, which is this example, these projects, right? So once we get approved by Ryan, we get the MOA, And sometime in early 26, going to the building committee based on PPS needs and requests for what they see as priority projects. That will be reviewed and voted on at the school building committee meeting. At that point, we'll develop a plan on implementing that during the contractors. So that's, the process really starts with understanding what the needs are, whether it's educational, or in some cases, the building's gonna tell us what the need is, if it's got a leaking roof. And then that process goes to the building committee and ultimately back to the city for procurement.
And the details of,
Councilman, please, we've got a big agenda here.
Sure.
Can wrap your questions up.
thank you, and just the, for housing, the details of the documents. Is there a designated place or just,
With every building committee, anything that's presented there is posted online. And I think that there's a link or an email that does go to everybody that gets a copy of what that agenda is. But even without that, you go to the state website, and be able to access what's on.
Councilman, I'm gonna actually ask,
I'm all set.
that person, Kyle Delgado, to brief you on, the building committee information that you're looking
Yeah, I
for.
mean, I'm all set.
Okay, wonderful. Anyone else? Okay,
Also,
Councilman,
one question,
Councilman
much.
Boggs, yes, please.
what is going to happen when we get the school divided? In this phase one, phase two, phase three, phase one.
Not qualified to answer that question.
Who will be though?
I don't actually think this will change. Currently, the governing bodies for this are the school building committee, the city, and EBSD. So this is an example of where, despite the relationship, the district and the city have had to continue to work together because housing aid has continued to come to the city. So I wouldn't expect it to change in the instance that schools are there.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Warner, did you have any, things to add, any questions, concerns?
No, I have no.
Okay, with that, do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve number one.
Motion made by Councilman Taylor, second by Councilwoman Endicott. All in favor? Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Matter passes. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Okay, Madam Clerk, please read item 2, Pittsburgh Records.
Resolution authorizing PPI to issue bonds in accordance with the purposes of the laws of the city for building, acquisition, and capital projects.
Sorry.
Yes.
Okay, please come forward, whoever is presenting on item 2. Madam Clerk, please swear the minute.
Sarah, Sarah.
You have to have a lot down there.
Chief Financial Officer, City of Providence.
Are there any exhibits?
Have the director state the last two items.
I'm gonna continue them based on the time, I think. So if you don't need them, for this matter, they can leave.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm passing. Two documents, one is a memo. And one is a PowerPoint presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Okay, many members, I believe you have item exhibits 2A and 2B. Let's call 2A the memo. Dated September 23rd, reason property acquisition bonding background. And then, I'm gonna, call 2B, PowerPoint, entitled Finance Committee Hearing 9/23/2025. May I have a motion to accept these exhibits?
Okay. Documents, well,
Okay,
secret financing, summary, nothing.
okay, circulate that. Let's get these two in. Motion to enter 2A and 2B. Second made by Taylor, second by Sanchez, all in favor, aye, and opposed, ayes have it, motion carries. That passes, we have exhibit A and B. Okay, may I have a motion to, call on this memorandum from Hilltop Securities to Lawrence Mancini, Chief Financial Officer, dated September 17th. We'll call it 2C. Motion made by Councilwoman Graves, seconded by Councilman Taylor, all in favor, aye, any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Okay, we have 2, A, B, and C. Okay, you're off.
So I'm gonna walk us through the PowerPoint. Everything in the PowerPoint is contained in the memo. There's just a little more detail in the memo. It will be a good reference document as we take questions, but I'm gonna use the PowerPoint to provide a high level overview. Sarah's gonna provide a little bit more detail on the impact of this transaction to the budget. And Larry is here as always to talk about the bond and answer other questions about, the future impact of the city's fiscal spend. Okay, so before you tonight is a resolution supporting a bond that would be issued through the PPPA for $25 million. The purpose of that bond is to acquire 2 properties. One, 444 Westminster, also known as the Dorley Building. The other is 475 Valley Street, also known as Waterfire Arts Center. And so the bond is split 18.5 million for 444 Westminster, 3.75 million for 475 Valley Street, and then the balance goes to closing and borrowing costs, and also will allow for a set aside for some capital improvements at 444 Westminster. So moving into the PowerPoint, I just gave a little bit of an overview of the why and the impact of both of them. So for background on 444 Westminster, that was a property that was leased starting in 2011. And as you all know, is used for many of our city operations. The term of that lease expires in 2036 and would likely need to be renewed as the city's, our operations are settled in there. Moving from that building would be an expensive and potentially onerous undertaking. The annual lease cost there is about $1.5 million, and it escalates at either the CPI or 3% a year. Going through the history of this, Sarah noted that there have been years where the escalation has been as high as 8% because the CPI is that up. It's never less than 3%. That cost includes some custodial services that are outsourced, but does not include building repairs and maintenance. So we recently replaced all the lighting with energy efficient lighting. The city had to pay for that. We installed a server room to better maintain our computer network equipment. The city paid for that. So over the course of the lease, we paid $14.7 million in rent. And if we were just playing out the end of this lease to 2036, we would spend about $18.5 million, although that $18.5 million assumes that the escalation is only 3% a year. So if there's ever a year that's more than that, it would be obviously more for that year, and it also compounds, right? It's 4% and then 5%, and we carry that with you on the lease. So the minimum we would pay to move to the end of this lease is $18.5 million. What we're proposing tonight is a purchase of that building for $18.5 million. And obviously at the end of the term, the city would own the building. I'll also note there's no right to termination or to purchase this building in the lease. So our choices are really to purchase the building or to, move to the end of the lease of 2036. Spending 18.5 million at least, in one case, 18.5 million for certainty in the other case. Just some additional benefits about why I am personally excited about this and why I think it's good for city operations and for the city's financial health. First of all, the purchase of this building will move the cost of the building into our debt service line, which you all are used to seeing as a relatively flat line. You've heard Larry's eloquent lesson about how we always kind of maintain our debt service the same as a way to make improvements in the city. So this would take the lease cost out of individual city departments paid by general revenue and move it into debt service. So that general revenue is now saved in the budget. If we were trying to close a gap, it would come out. Maybe it allows us to make other investments in those departments. I talked about how the bond payments are equal or less than the rent payment. So if we look out over the course of the 20-year bond, assuming we stayed in the building for that period, the savings to the city for that 20-year period is 7.5. It also allows us to make some more strategic investments in the building. If you've spent any time in that building, you know it has not been properly organized, I'll say it. It is spread out and sprawling. There are file cabinets everywhere. We could certainly better use that building, and our goal is to move departments that have pain points in City Hall through that building, because we would be able to better reorganize it and use it more efficiently. We have some real pain for departments here, archives, people and culture, other folks that aren't well served by this building. No decisions have been made there because we're waiting to be able to do this, but part of what we would do is be able to make actual investments. Like in that building, there's still like the Blue Cross logo in some of the places. So we just really haven't spent that much money. We would be able to fix that. Obviously, energy efficiency improvements, investments to help make the building carbon neutral would be, much more feasible because we own the building and we're going to want to spend money on it. And then just general repairs, like any money that, anyone who's rented has sometimes felt this before. You're putting money into something and then you're walking away from it, and the landlord benefits from whatever you did, depending on your arrangement. In this case, it's all the city money going into improvements in that building. So going forward, at a minimum, when we would make improvements, we would benefit from that. And then the last thing I'll say is, it is important for the city to stay downtown. We are, in a time when we're trying to attract business downtown. We want people working in the city. We want to maintain our city operation downtown. In particular, that location, you all also know that we've authorized some improvements to Cathedral Square. And so we're going to have the opportunity to be improving that building for our employees, improving it for the residents and customers that are served there, and improving the outdoor space. Like, I think could be a once in a generation kind of improvement. Would you like me to just go through the next one and then take all the questions?
I think so.
Okay. So, as I mentioned, the second property that we're considering is 3.75 for the Waterfire Arts Center. This is really out of recognition of our commitment to Waterfire. Obviously, some of our colleagues from Waterfire are here tonight. We have talked about this in our budget process before. We believe that a strong, financially healthy Waterfire is important to the city. And we're looking for something more strategic to do with them to help them get to a place of financial health. We are used to every year the asks coming forward and everybody shaking couch cushions. We don't believe that that's the state that we want that organization to be in. And so their leadership team came forward to the city with a proposal to contemplate the city purchasing the building and leasing it back to water. So that's what we're doing here. In the circumstance, Waterfire will pay all their operating costs. We will carry the debt service, which is about $336,000 a year. Again, in our debt service line, where we have capacity to do so. And Waterfire will manage the building and its operations, but it will provide it with some capital to help it get into a more stable place so that we don't have to worry about its future as much. Okay, Sarah, will you just add any other comments on the budget that I can remember.
Yeah, absolutely. If I could ask everyone on the Chief Hawkins memo, you turn to page 2, at the bottom of page 2, there's a spreadsheet that lays out the acquisition costs versus the rental costs through 2046. And as Chief Hawkins mentioned, when I projected through 2026, I used the base increase of the base rent of 3%. In 2020, fiscal 2020, CPI was 8.52%, so that was how much the rent increased that year. That was a $10,000 a month increase to our rental payment just in that year. In fiscal 24, it was 3.18, not much greater than 3%. But then in fiscal 25 and 26, CPI was less than 3%, but we were held to that 3% minimum, so today it's around 3%. In addition to these base rental costs, the city pays a monthly management fee, and that is around $72,000 a year. We also pay for all of the maintenance and utilities on this building. And just for some examples, in July, our monthly maintenance fee was $6,590. And of that bill, 535 was a 10% service charged to us. So we pay for all of the maintenance, when there's paper towels, toilet paper purchase, when there's pest control or whatever the monthly service that is provided by 444 Westminster Partners. They charge us for that, and they charge us a 10% service fee for providing that service. So there's other than the rent, using the rent line, there's also money in the public property budget to account for those expenses. If you look a little closer at this chart, you'll notice that in fiscal 26, we will be paying potentially $500,000 in acquisition costs. It would be an interest only payment off of bond, and a half a year. That is related to the budget. We've got 1.5 million budgeted of fiscal year 26 rent, so it's less than that, and we both have a whole year of maintenance fees and management fees. And then going forward, you'll see the acquisition cost is less than our base, just our base rent, for the next couple of years. And then we have a few years where we are like 100,000, 140,000 over that rental cost, but not considering the potential that those rents could have increased more, or that we're paying these monthly maintenance and management fees in addition to these costs. Additionally, we have some money budgeted in fiscal 26 as a placeholder for debt service to keep debt service level, and so that payment from the first year acquisition cost would be picked up by that placeholder that is budgeted.
Okay. Before, Madam Chair, members of the council, so before you was memorandum that was prepared by Hilltop Security, which is the city's outside fiscal agent, Mr. Biden. It's pricing a total $25 million bond issue, priced over a 20-year period. It's been separated into two series, series 2025A, which is the acquisition of 444, and series B, which is the acquisition of 475 Allergy. As is the case in most bond issues that the city participates in, it appears that we won't be eligible for bond premium, which is probably running at about $1,460,000. And no matter change.
It's a wonderful thing.
That you're keen on that. Yes, it is a wonderful thing. It truly assists in many areas beyond the closing of the bond. And I should walk you through that at the moment. We expect,
We get such a good bond premium.
I think our city's credit rating has improved drastically in the past several years, and the market, as I've seen, the market is strong for capital city bonds. So at that point, we would generate close to $1.5 million for bond premium. That will assist us in other costs associated beyond the par value of the bond. We would take in then close to $26,460,000 in the total proceeds. And you can see that the first two columns allocated by the bond issue, and that's important to note that there's a reason why any funds that are currently contemplated to be used for project reserve for improvements are strictly allocated to the 444 property, if you will, as a reserve in case there's a need for some sort of improvements. But following that along, it appears that the acquisition cost will be $18,500,000 for the 444.
Can we pay for the space planning? Project out of that? Yes. Okay.
So 18.5 million is the acquisition cost associated and assigned to the Bowling building. 3,750,000 is the assigned cost for water fire, and we expect that there will be a reserve approximately 932,000, could be a little higher. That reserve will be completely affiliated with 444 in the event that we have an imminent need or a need in the near future to do some subject property improvements. It'll be already provided for, it'll be set aside as a reserve. Following that, we do believe that there may be the need for a debt service fund. Now, the debt service fund is generally applied in all bond issues, but the city, through its outside fiscal advisor, using its diligence and its creditworthiness, always seeks to buy a bond, surety bond. If that's the case, we may be fortunate enough to reduce our debt service reserve by about $1.8 million. If that happens, we will use that savings to cover the next year's interest only payment. Then we'll put an additional fund aside in reserve. So here's that it will be in good favor. We can save there. We might save about $1.8 million if we can get bond surety insurance. I think we might be able to do that. Past practice has proven that we were qualified to do so. In addition to that, there will be what's known as capitalized interest. That will cover at least the first 6 months in 2026, which has been set aside and is included in our debt service budget. That will cover the interest payment that will be necessary from the date of closing to the end of the fiscal year, as Sarah Severi pointed out. We expect to see interest only payments for the next 2 years, thereby lowering the bond cost, and then there'll be a blended rate over the remaining 18 years of the bond. In addition to that, cost of issuance, which includes underwriter's discount for the service of providing a place for the bonds, legal fees, and any other costs associated with the transaction, have been estimated at $500,000, and then it's split accordingly by cost of issuance, $375 allocated to the 2 projects, and $125,000 for underwriter's discount. In addition to that, there may be some small additional funds. Having said that, Madam Chairman of the committee, is our anticipation to close by October 31st. While it's somewhat expeditious, we are in place to do so, working with our outside law firm and advisors. Following this meeting this evening, if we are fortunate to receive your consideration of the committee, we expect that this matter will move on to council its next meeting on October 2nd. And with the single passage on October 2nd, we are already scheduled to return back to the public voting authority with this authority in hand, this transaction already structured and then ready to be priced. Public building authority will give us their authority to go forward, and then the underwriter will be engaged to move forward in identifying bond buyers and placement. On that note, we have already submitted the information to the outside fiscal agent. A RFP for underwriting services was circulated last week. Those underwriting proposals are due back tomorrow to the outside fiscal agent, which then will record them and circulate them to all the principal bodies in the transaction, including those associated with city finance, city administration, city internal audit, that to see the list of return firms who have responded. While in the next several days, next 2 or 3 days, Hilltop will analyze those bids and come back with the top 5 that they believe are the best interest for the city to give us the highest return on our bond issue. With that said, the statistics as they appear on the left hand, on the right hand side of the column, just generally show the statistics. When this was priced, they were using an all-in cost, which is not the same as interest, an all-in cost of 4.71%. The numbers that Ms. Silveria that was focused, compared to this evening was priced a little bit lower. We expect that that's from the market will do, notwithstanding Federal Reserve action. I know it was actually quite early this evening. That does not show up immediately in the municipal bond market, but maybe over time, when the city's other bonds, if you will, you might see some difference, but not in the city. Any questions you have?
Many members. Councilwoman Grace.
Why are we entertaining this on a building that's worth $7 million?
You asking me that question, or you?
$7 million.
I got a question, I'm sorry.
We're talking about paying 18 point whatever $1 million on a building that's estimated to cost $7 million.
Well, by now, the building was assessed at that. That's an assessment, that doesn't mean it's well. The city's outside independent appraiser appraised it at 11.5 million.
Still less than that.
And then if I may, absolutely, as Ms. Parker's pointed out, our current lease has no provision for us to have the option to purchase it. So this is a transaction that I would consider a business decision between a willing seller and a willing buyer. And because this willing buyer has an immediate need to preserve that space, that's most likely will stay in that space. If nothing else, until the very end of this lease, with no provision to break the lease. And then the board, of course, can relocate. You have to relocate to another property quite similar in kind in the city. While we may think they do exist, I don't know if there will be enough for floor planning and space planning as the city intends to do so. In that regard, overall, we see a savings of 7.5 million, plus the ability to gain equity and ownership and bond financing. Bond financing is considered to be attractive.
This sounds good. Well, you know, we just raised taxes on our people. And then we tell them now we want to get a bond, which is gonna go back onto them. We have buildings that are sitting empty and falling apart that we own. And we're not doing anything with.
Can you tell me what building you mean?
I'm talking about, we own properties throughout the city.
Can you tell me specifically what property you're talking?
You're trying to tell me we don't own properties that are sitting empty?
Councilwoman, she asked you.
No,
I
no.
understand. She's asking you to
Are you,
clarify what your
no,
question
are you
is.
telling me that we don't own any property? That's sitting
We
in
are, that we're not doing anything with. Correct.
schools?
We are actively working to move vacant properties to the market for housing and other things. There are
But-
not vacant properties that we don't have plans to do anything.
Plans is one thing, and doing, and sitting there is a whole other
Actually,
thing.
a number of vacant properties before the city property commission that I'm at the council. There are not properties that could be invested in for the purpose of this operation available to the city.
Again, I don't want to be argumentative because that's not my side.
No, I just want to clarify.
I'm gonna clarify again. I have a really big problem with us trying to engage in bond issues and all these other things after we sit here and just finish telling people, we have to raise your taxes. And then we say, oh, well, now we're gonna enter into a bond thing. Not just one thing, I'm looking at two different bond issues on this table. And these are things that we shouldn't be trying to do. I think we're asking too much for the people. From our people, I really do.
Sarah, can just quick.
Go ahead, Sarah, I'm sorry.
That's, I just want to be clear that moving this payment from a rental payment to a bond payment does not increase the city's budget.
Okay.
It's a savings to the budget. A minimum of 7.5 million for the course of that bond, but we're also saving an extra $250,000 in management fees and maintenance fees that we
Okay.
pay for landlord right now.
Okay.
This in no way increases the city's operating budget.
Okay,
It's a savings.
well, that makes me feel a lot better. It definitely does. You know, because I don't want to go to my meeting tomorrow and have everybody screaming and hollering at me. I'm gonna be truthful with you. And I hope somebody can come to my meeting tomorrow and explain it to me, just the way you explained it to me, to them, just the way you explained it to me. Because I know there's gonna be someone there that's gonna be doing that. So,
Could you put something in writing and send that?
thank you.
Great,
Okay,
that would be helpful. Okay, did you want to follow up?
yeah, yes.
I may reply to Councilwoman Graves. In addition to what's Director Surveyor shared, we recently adopted 2026 budget already has made a provision for the necessary debt service to incorporate not only this bond, but there are some other matters that are paid before the council building, the trash council, there's another one that may come before. That has already been accommodated in the 2026 budget, and it fits within the budgetary capacity of debt service. So in addition to what I'm done, this surveyor made a very good point on substituting, what basically is the renting for a mortgage payment for the building.
Thank you very much. Great clarification. Councilman Sanchez.
I'm sorry, you done?
No, I'm done right there.
Thank you, Chairwoman. My first question is, our current rental payments at 444 Westminster from your guys's, I know you guys are a bunch of intelligent folks. Are they above, average commercial rental payments in the city of Providence right now? Or below? What would your guys' just initial assessment of?
Property is considered class A rental development, so I would say that it is approaching what would be market rate. Given that this was a lease that was signed back in 2011, and the cost escalator has been done so that it would keep up with market rate.
So I asked that, because I think it's important to acknowledge some of my colleagues' concerns. You know, we have read a couple of news articles recently, and I think the optics of this purchase definitely are not in, all of our favors. But when you look at the current lease, and what we would be paying to what we are gonna be paying to purchase, I think the math makes sense. But it makes sense in my opinion on for lack of better words, a really crappy lease. And just to put that on record, I think it's important to acknowledge that with our constituents, when we're speaking to them directly, that the city, in my opinion, at least, has its hands tied to a really crappy lease. So we're gonna, do this move, to get out of that crappy lease and own the property. Not really a question. I think it's just an acknowledgement that I haven't really seen from any city officials up to this point. That's important to, communicate that with our neighbors. And just to confirm, we're talking about moving funds from payments and rental to debt service.
That's good.
So by doing that, that's where we're saving money still.
Prospectively, the debt service line for the course of time, there are many changes to debt service line both up and down. As bond issued mature, come off the city's books, it gives new capacity to borrow, choose to borrow again, or to do nothing and save those loans. So in the debt service line, there is that flexibility to it. But if it's a rental payment, it's due each and every month.
Right.
It has to be appropriate every year. It's very.
That's what you always hear Larry talking about debt capacity in our budget. The team manages our debt capacity, which is how we determine, we can go out for capital improvements, because we want to keep it about the same. Allowing us to continue to make investments so that we don't fall behind on things and have buildings in disrepair, to your point. But taking it out of general revenue, it is a big impact. Like you all felt this when we scrubbed the budget this year for every single penny. This rent, part of why we came to this is this rent became like one of the biggest things that we just had no opportunity to cut. And it was painful to cut other things, knowing that we didn't have a chance to do this. And that's why we're bringing it for you today.
Thank you. Can I continue? Thank you, Chairwoman. How does this impact our bond capacity for the next couple of years? Do we still have room for another CIP?
Yes, good question.
Yeah, well, you'll recall that in the CIP this year, there was a line for 20 million for property acquisition, so you've really already accounted for it. This is 5 million more, so we'll have to make those adjustments when the CIP comes back to you, but it's not significant. So you saw how your projects, when we come back to the budget, you'll see this in there, but we purposely baked it in there to make sure that we were accounting for this as we were thinking about all the other priorities.
Thank you. And really my last question is, if we could just kind of explain a little bit more how we came to the $3.75 million figure for the 475 Valley Street property. What did we have someone do an assessment on behalf of the city of that property?
We did and Water Fire did. The Water Fire assessment was 3.75, so that's what we had brought. That's what they had brought forward as part of this proposal. Our own assessment came in much higher in the $6 million range. So we did that assessment to ensure that we were not overpaying and surely didn't.
Thank you.
That wasn't an internal assessment, correct? That was
an
outside appraisal. I'm sorry.
No, I'm good, thank you.
Councilwoman.
Thank you. Do you mind if I have a couple?
Go right ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I have a few questions, as usual. First, I just wanted to follow up on Councilwoman Grace's question. So it sounded like our appraisal was, our outside appraisal was 11 million, but the purchase is 18.5. Does the property owner have like other interested parties? Like, why is there not more of like a meeting in the middle? Like, it seems like the kind of building that like we're already in. It would be painful for us to move, but it would probably also be painful for them to sell to anyone else who's not us. Like, did we
Because we don't
negotiate
have
that out?
grounds to terminate the lease.
Yeah.
We don't have a legal way to not pay that amount of
Yeah.
money through 2056. They also have an appraisal that is in the $23 million range, which considers the value of our lease because we didn't know, but also because we are a long-term leaseholder, the property is tax exempt. So if you think about if they were to sell the building with us as a leaseholder, guaranteed, they're saying to the market, who wants this building that is guaranteed to be property exempt, that is guaranteed to pay at least $18.5 million and probably more in the future because they're likely not leaving. It is the seller's appraisal took that into account.
And our appraisal didn't take that into account.
It was a different method. It was different.
The city's appraisal comes from the PRA, took into consideration, market rate and condition of applicable legal sellers. Pointed out that because the current tenant was a governmental entity, they, at least that had no call clause, that market rate rent would continue and it would have additional value, so that's really.
Please go ahead.
I guess to the memo from, or to you, Chief Mancini, I think this is a question, this might be a question for the director of area. Can you help us do do the math here? So if the bill, if we're buying it 3 point, so just for the for either actually. So if we're buying the series 2025A at 18.5, our amount is 20.95. At the bottom, it all evens out, but where are we seeing the, like, where's the roughly 1.5 million difference showing up in the math below? Do you understand my question? Like, I just don't understand how
I can
roads.
certainly walk you through it again. So on the premise of providing expenses that will come to both transactions, these are why there are two transactions. Typical bond issue for the acquisition of 444, because the water fire property is held by a 501c3. Was based on by city council, it would be best to have separated as separate issues, although it would be one underwrite, which they were doing. So when you allocate the price, it comes up to approximately 83%, 17% is the common denomination between two properties. And then all of the expenses that are common will be split in that direction, 83, 17, except for the amount that was intended to be a capital reserve for future improvements or imminent improvements, only associated with the 444 property. It's never our intention to do so at the 475 property. So if we follow those first two columns, they are set up to show you that, for example, power amount means that's the purchase price. Power amount, that's how we're signing it. Premium is the bond premium that we hope to earn, so that's an existing utilities. And then, if you will, the cost flow from there. I do think that when you see that they split between an 83-17 split on the commonality of cost of issuance, debt service reserve, underwrite discount, and again, the only other cost that's direct to the 444 transaction was the capital building.
And Councilman Ingram, I just add the debt service reserve money of the 2.2,132,775. That's our money that'll pay our final debt service payment on that.
Okay.
So that's not like an expense that we're paying us sometimes. It's money that would be in the reserve.
And as I gave testimony to the chair, if we're fortunate enough to secure a bond insurance surety bond, which is common in the market, but not all bond borrowers can get that. We have to be unique and then credit it to distinguish that. There is an opportunity to lower that reserve, even at the cost of issuing that surety bond, with a net savings there of $1,850,000, which will go for the next year's interest only payment, saving the budget once again, and maybe a small piece we need for additional capital reserve if there's a need for repairs and improvements at the 444 property. So overall, transaction has been constructed upon.
And do we know that we'll qualify for the surety bond you just mentioned, or?
With no insurance from our outside fiscal advisors, the last two bond issue that we did last summer, including one that was comparable like this, it's a CIP. Certainly, bond premium, and we was about sure to local results, so yes, we did.
And then more on this page, the all-in cost of 4.71%. Are we locked in at this rate over like?
This was priced last week based on market conditions last week. We won't price until like 1 week prior to vote. And it's all based on market conditions. So certain things trigger certain conditions. When they use the word all-in cost, they really mean all-in cost associated, not just the interest, but the cost associated closing the transactions. But the better number is the TIC, total interest cost. That's based on pricing and bond premium and the payment. We'll know more about that as the transaction moves forward, but I'm comfortable that it would be no greater than that. It may be priced somewhere maybe at 1 below, which is significant savings.
And for the, sorry for my lack of knowledge here, but for the TIC percentage, does that stay consistent over the life of the bond?
Fixed.
Okay, that's fixed. That's okay. I appreciate it. You mentioned this, Chief Hawkins, but can you talk a little bit more? Once we buy a building, it is then, needs to be compliant with our carbon neutral ordinance. So have we budgeted for that?
We have not, I think we'll have to assess that building, I think there's actually probably more opportunity than we contemplated, because we haven't owned it before for solar and other things, but that will, we'll be excited to be bringing a proposal for a revolving fund for green investments, and that will be the kind of. Also, the money Larry talked about, like capital improvements to the building, could also be spent on that. If we find something that is like immediately gonna provide us savings, that would be one of the things that we do.
I have two more questions. One is, and this is with full love for wildfire, I need to say that, I love wildfire, go to it all the time, advertise to friends and loved ones. But the question I have is, if we do this, are we still do a seal allocation in the budget to wildfire? I think we often give like a budget.
It will be our intention to include that in the budget, that will obviously be before council. We should have, the chairwoman and I discussed, the lease will come back to this council, hopefully. It will be introduced October 2nd. At that meeting, we're gonna ask water fire for a full presentation about their finances, some of the turnaround efforts, what this funding is gonna do. And you'll have a chance to understand more why they believe this is gonna help them. And so you'll have, hopefully that will leave you wanting to continue to make those investments, because we certainly don't wanna make an investment there and then take one away, so that they're not better.
Yeah, I wasn't intimating that I felt like we shouldn't, it was just like, transparency over thank you. And then my last question, I guess, is, so these are complicated numbers, I think my colleagues and I are smart people, but these require us to like really dig in. So I guess I'm wondering, this came up when we were doing the CIP, that the 20 million could be used for the 444 building. I guess, why didn't we get any of these memos or anything ahead of time? It would have been nice to see these before we locked in. I quickly just read it as you were talking, but some of this would have been nice.
One we have not done was there's a serious intent to move forward and a price has been established, if you will, and then the particular cost to quote in Joe, then enable something that may not be adopted until the July budget, the transaction that could close very soon in October. We probably have skewed those numbers. So while we had an idea in our mind and our debt schedule to bring that complete transaction forward as I'm presenting this evening, wasn't called off of the fund.
I appreciate that, Chief.
Okay. Many members, are you all set? Council, okay. Yes.
If down the road, we sell a Sylvester School, I know it's on the thing, and we sell Humboldt Fire Station, that's two I can think of off the top of my head. Where, yeah. We're there to make it, but when that happens, where does that money go? Would it go back into bonds, or general fund?
It's not a general fund revenue, it's a separate fund that all of, any sale of state property goes into the separate fund, and it can only be used for like capital repairs or debt service.
That could be used if we wanna make carbon neutral, we could use that money towards that, or no?
The sale of property was in the capital asset reserve fund, and then only by council resolution. Can you add that dispersed for those causes that are further capital improvements, property acquisition, or the extinguishment of that service.
Yeah, and in some cases where we can, we're transferring properties to RA for sale. that money revolves into the housing trust to allow them to continue to make investments, but in some cases like Humboldt, we can't do that because it's not in a redevelopment area. So that would apply to like just the local district.
Councilman,
Thank you. Just a quick question, Chairwoman. Just going back to the statistics, part of the Hilltop Security, memo. I don't know if you touched on it already. The total interest amount on there, that's the total interest that we're gonna pay on this bond?
Based on pricing in the mid-4s that, over a 20-year life on 25 million, it's.
So I guess where has the city like analyzed like that total amount into the projected,
It's
Accurate.
it's included in the acquisition cost.
like
Still
included?
say seven,
Oh, okay,
even though.
even with the interest, okay, thank you.
anyone else? Councilman Bishop.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question in reference to, owning the buildings, will the building be, owned by PBVA or both of them?
Yes.
And and as presented, I think it's a good deal in terms of the 444. Because it has come before us and it just, as you said, the math just keeps adding, increasing over time. In question in terms of the savings, and I think you highlighted, based on the projected rents, it was like $1.2 million. That's gonna be used for, in the savings in 2027, 28, for debt service, or also, or just coming back to the budget to be allocated.
All things considered with our debt service line, and not including any next borrows that we may consider, including the school bond borrows, so we'll talk about that as well, or CIP and the next issue. There may be opportunity to absorb the new debt service of this transaction in the current size of that debt service line, that this is very well, and then assisting the general fund budget. I know we're paying rent, but that would probably dedicate some of the this to the budget, as it always will be, to budget.
Two more, in reference to the building itself. Can the repairs be also included in this agreement to repair 444? Or improvements?
We are allowing amount that will approximate $1 million that will be held in reserve. The reserve will be used for any imminent repair requirements, if you will, or any in the very near future. It can be set aside in an escrow fund for probably up to 3 years. Of course, in terms of the bond condition, but that's the approximate amount that we believe would be, if necessary, would be set aside. If not, it would be used all the way back.
And then the last one on the water fire building. I know you said we're gonna get a presentation. PBA is gonna own this facility. And in that contract, they also get a lease for how long, and do they get to buy it out too at the end?
I don't want the lease is currently under negotiation, that will come back to the, approval, so all those terms will be in that, I don't want to speculate.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Councilman Vargas, do you have?
Sorry, Madam Chair.
No, sorry at all.
Thank you very much. Is there any possibility to appoint any city departments in the water fire building? There's a huge, there's a lot of space in there, and responsible.
It is really important that the city not take any responsibility for the management of that building. The water fire will continue to operate that building. And you know, critical, as I've learned more about their future plan, that building being busy with events and paying rent is part of how water fire becomes stronger. So we really want to give them the autonomy to continue to develop that business. I think the possibility for work we can do at 444 for city departments, you know, we have the new DPW and DIS buildings on Chapman. We'll have a new reorganized 444 Westminster. It will allow us to improve spaces in here, including for council departments. I think, you know, my goal was that when I'm done in city service, I will leave all of these buildings in a much better condition than we have.
Last one.
Please.
You mentioned the 444 is a tax exempt, is it tax exempt because of TSA or? Because of the lease. Or because of it? Because we're a lease company. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, all set? We have a motion.
I like make a motion, we approve number 2.
Motion made by Councilman Taylor, seconded by Councilman Grace, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. The matter passes. It goes to the council. Thank you, everyone.
Motion to adjourn.
May I have a motion to continue items 3 and 4 on our agenda?
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Andrew, seconded by Councilman Sanchez, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, ayes have it. It's carried. Motion to adjourn made by Councilman Taylor, seconded by Councilman Andrew, all in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. Motion carried.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, go, go, go.